Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charleston, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. In today's episode, we got an interesting one for you guys that you definitely want to stick around for because we got a lot that we want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into this video. Now, going into this season, the Nets were picked to be the favorites to come out of the, really to win the entire thing. And that's really what they were last year after they were able to acquire James Harden. Once they acquired James Harden, and as he aptly said, it was scary hours. I thought that the Clippers had a chance to win it all, but the moment that they got James Harden, I was like, this offense is way too potent. You have three players that can score between 75 to 80 points on a given night. How do you guard a team like this? So the Nets had some very high expectations, not just from within the organization, but from the, the media, and the fans. But once we found out that Kyrie Irving wasn't going to be able to play some home games, they started to struggle a little bit. But Kevin Durant, who some consider to be the best player in the NBA, still had them in the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference up until the point he got injured. Now, there was something that was strange about the Nets that I noticed last year and also this year. I noticed that whenever Kevin Durant played with Kyrie Irving together, there was something alarming taking place on the court. And this is something I noticed last year, and we produced some videos around it. If you go back and hunt down some of our older content on the Brooklyn Nets, you'll find these videos where we discuss this. But it was something very strange. I noticed something, and it made me ask myself the question, which was this. Does Kyrie Irving realize that Kevin Durant is the best player on the Brooklyn Nets? Because there were some times last season where you watch some games, especially late in games, when Kevin Durant would have it going and Kyrie Irving would not defer to KD whatsoever. In many cases, he would just look him off. And there would be, 4, 5, 6 possessions where KD would go without even touching the ball. And I would say to myself, does Kyrie realize that he's freezing KD and out in some of these games? They're freezing Kevin Durant out in some of these games, and that's not the best way to win when you're not running your offense through the best player on the floor. And it was something that gave me alarm. But obviously, Kyrie Irving got injured in the playoffs, and he ended up not playing, so we didn't really get to see that, really bear fruit. But this season, that same exact thing has been taking place, and one person in the media has astutely picked up on it, and this person is Chris Broussard, and he just laid out a perfect explanation, that pretty much explains the dichotomy between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the court, where he pretty much crystallizes this issue that the Brooklyn Nets have that no one was really focusing on. So before we go too far, we want to play some of his comments that he made yesterday on First Things First, where he eloquently and beautifully explained this issue. So before we go too far, take a listen to some of the things that he had to say here. Then we're going to come back and react to what he had to say. So take a listen to that.
Yeah, look, I'm not a Nets fan. I'm just an objective analyst who has rightly said the Nets can be dangerous. They can play with and beat anybody in the Eastern Conference. But Wilds, what I saw last night, I'm leaning more toward Nick on this one. I don't feel better as a guy that thinks the Nets are dangerous.
Drama there.
I mean, you said it in your tweet. They're not the 15-16 Warriors that they were facing. It was the Knicks, who are 35 and 45. All right? And here's the other thing, Wilds. You know this. I've been saying it for the past week or two. I wasn't concerned so much about the Nets' defense. Yes, it's bad. But like you said, with Rick Bucher pointed out, they got much better defensively in the playoffs. I'm not saying they'll be the bad boy Pistons, but they can play adequate defense. Kyrie Irving has everything you need to play good defense. And when he wants to, he can. And so the Nets can be a good enough defensive team, as we saw last year against the Bucks in that playoff series. So the defense isn't, there it is. They're 4th ranked defensively in the playoffs last year, 1st in field goal percentage for the opponent. So defensively, they can turn it up to be good enough. My problem with the Nets, and I've been saying this for a while too, not in these terms, but their Batman has a Robin mentality, and their Robin has a Batman mentality. Last night, they were down 17 points at halftime. You know why? A big reason why they were down 17? Because Kyrie Irving almost took twice as many shots as Kevin Durant. Kyrie took 13 shots in the first half. Durant had 7. And that wasn't a blip. This is a trend. Kyrie Irving should not be shooting the basketball more than Kevin Durant. Look at it. This season he's shooting more. Since he's gone full time with, the vaccination law being changed, he shot more. In April, he's shooting 6 shots per game more than Kevin Durant. He's taken more shots in the last 4 games than KD. And KD is not assertive enough to go to Kyrie or Russell Westbrook and say, I'm the man. Give me the ball. I should be the first option. That is a problem. And that is a continuation, Nick, of the theme that Kyrie's got to show me that he can play winning basketball without LeBron James dragging him to it. Without LeBron being the leader and Kyrie grudgingly going along. Grudgingly, right? He's Curly Neal, he's Marcus Haynes, all that. But this is about winning. It's not about just putting on a show. Yeah. And so Kyrie's got to be a playmaker, more so getting everybody involved, and most importantly, Kevin Durant, rather than just looking for his shot and doing this thing one-on-one. And that's what concerns me most, Wilds, about.
Now, let me just say this. Chris Broussard is 100% on the money, and he is right. He is absolutely right that it is a very alarming trend. The fact of the matter is this. Kevin Durant is the best player on the Brooklyn Nets, period, end of story. There's no question about this. There's not a close second, right? He is the best option to win games. Kevin Durant, if you think about it this way, Kevin Durant is the single most unguardable player in the NBA if he is allowed to play one-on-one basketball. He is, because of his ability to shoot from distance. Kevin Durant can simply pull up and shoot because of his high release point. You can't block Kevin Durant's shot. You just can't block it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, last time I checked, Kevin Durant is either a top 15, top 20 player all time already. Kyrie Irving, I'm not sure, is even a top 50 player of all time. He is just not. If we're talking about accomplishments, if we're talking about his resume, you can't even say that Kyrie Irving is a top 40 NBA player. You really cannot. So if Kyrie Irving doesn't realize this, this is very, very alarming. The distance between how good Kyrie is and Kevin Durant is not the same thing like when Shaq was playing with Kobe. It's not the same. You're talking about 2 top 75 players, one that was in his prime and another one that was entering his prime. That is not the case here with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. It's simply not. And I think it's important that Kyrie Irving realizes this. In my personal opinion, I think Kyrie Irving has enough talent and enough offensive skills and basketball awareness to be able to average 7 to 8 or even 9 assists per game if he chose to do so and try to run the offense through KD. It makes no sense to Chris Broussard's stats that in a month, Kyrie Irving was actually averaging more shot attempts than Kevin Durant. That is exactly what happened with the with the Oklahoma City Thunder in OKC when he was playing alongside Russell Westbrook, and you saw they never even won an NBA championship together. Yes, they got to an NBA Finals, but ultimately, they never won. It's not a recipe for winning. KD is their best option every single time down the floor. If you look at other teams that are having success in the NBA, those teams have a clear pecking order. They have a clear pecking order. If you look at the Chicago Bulls, we all know that what's his name? DeMar DeRozan. If you look at the Golden State Warriors, you all know that is Stephen Curry. If you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, you know that it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. If you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, you know that it's Joel Embiid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if we have to ask the question, who's the number one option on the Nets, we have a problem. Even when Paul George, and I'm sure these NBA players have massive egos, and I understand that you have to have a lot of self-belief and self-confidence in yourself, I believe, to be successful, period, but let alone make it to the NBA and stay in the NBA. But even when Paul George joined the Clippers, he said Kawhi Leonard is our best player. He deferred to him immediately. So there's no question about who the number one option on that team is, which removes all the issues that you could probably have. The issue with Kobe and Shaq was that you had 2 number one options on the same team. And that's where the issue was. In the case of the Nets, Kevin Durant is the undisputed number one option, and I hope Kyrie Irving realizes that in time. Otherwise, he may cost his team some series or some games in the NBA playoffs. So these are my thoughts and opinions, and what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about what Chris Broussard had to say? And what do you think about what I had to say? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll definitely catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.